Once again, I rise, giving the highest of praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, highest of honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Ali. I extend those honors to the forerunner, the harbinger, the honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did stir and warn up the nations. I give honors to the Moorish American standard, the red flag with the green five-pointed star representing the highest principles that are known to man, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I also acknowledge the United Mercantile Trader Man, also known as the American flag. I give honors to all Moorish Americans, both past, present, and future, who strive to perpetuate this Moorish divine and national movement by way of the Prophet's holy instructions and divine laws. I give honors to Temple Number 19, the office of the Grand Governor, the Lieutenant Grand Governor, Sheik staff, the admin staff, and the mighty vanguards to keep the peace. Last but certainly, I give honors to you, the Ills and Bays, the sacred groves, because when man honors man, he honors our Father God Allah. Islam? All praises are due to Allah once again. We cannot give him enough praise for having us here on another holy day so that we may continue to build on things that make us better citizens. This evening, we are going to raise up the ethers with chapter 39, Holy Instruction from the Prophet, Pinnacle of Wisdom. And I'm going to read it in part. And I'm going to read from verse 1 all the way to verse 5. Islam? Chapter 39, Holy Instruction from the Prophet, Pinnacle of Wisdom. As the eye of the morning to the lark, as the shade of the evening to the owl, as honey to the bee, or as the carcass to the vulture, even such is life unto the heart of man. Though bright, it dazzleth not, though obscure, it displeaseth not. Though sweet, it cloyeth not. Though corrupt, it forbiddeth not. Yet who is he that knoweth its true value? Learn to esteem as thou ought, then art thou near the pinnacle of wisdom. Think not with the fool that nothing is more valuable, nor believe with the pretended wise that thou oughtest to condemn it. Love it not thyself, but for the good it may be of to others. Gold cannot buy it for thee, neither mines of diamonds purchase back the moment thou hast lost it, thou hast now lost it. Employ the succeeding ones in virtue. Islam family? Now, with chapter 39 and the Pinnacle of Wisdom, I often associate this concept with a couple of things. The first thing, the most important, is the value of human life. The value of life to the Asiatic. We have to remember that we as Moorish Americans, our charge is to proclaim our nationality and teach our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part of this said government and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, etc. The idea that we, for over 400 plus years, have been under the marks of Negro, black, and colored, we technically didn't have any concept or conception, rather, of life. So we have to remember in this Moorish Holy Quran, these instructions that we have by our Holy and Divine Prophet, though it has some lofty concepts and deals with principles, philosophical principles, if you will, we can always break this down to the basics, to the most practical of ideals. And the pinnacle of wisdom, the height, when we talk about this term pinnacle, the height, the zenith, that means that out of all the knowledge and the understanding that you have of of these instructions by our prophet, know that ultimately it's the preservation of life that is much important. The preservation of your legacy as Moorish Americans, to give a legacy rather to your friends and your family and even to yourself. You owe it to yourself. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about the idea that as much as we like to think that this life on the plane of manifest is not as good as we would liken it to be, as opposed to heaven, or as opposed to the astral plane, if you will, traveling to the astral plane. We have to understand that right here, right now, on the plane of manifest, that we're flesh and blood, that we have to preserve the lives that come after we're dead and gone, after we veil the form. And the idea of preserving human life means that you have value for the idea of life. You have value for yourself. I say this all the time, but the most important thing, if you don't take anything away from this Moorish Divine and National Movement, from the instructions and the teachings and the lessons of the Prophet, he brought you up from being reduced to property, to recognizing that you are a human being, that you are a creation and a thought of Allah made manifest. And that in itself is value. That in itself holds weight. That in itself makes you important. And if you see the value in yourself, you see your value in your brother or your sister that stands next to you. If you can look in the mirror and say that I am the spirit of Allah, I am made from good stuff, I'm cut from the same cloth, or I'm a part of this cosmic scheme of things. But as I'm on this plane of manifest, it is my duty to preserve and perpetuate life, and make sure when I veil the form, or when I ascend, or when I transfer to the plane of spirit, that life on this plane of manifest will succeed, will provide. If you do not leave anything for your children, for your family members, when you veil the form, then you have failed as a creation of Allah made manifest. That's your duty, to preserve human life. That's what Noble Drew Ali is speaking of in part on chapter 39. The pinnacle of wisdom is the preservation of life on the plane of manifest. Do you all understand what I'm saying, family? It's very important. It's very important that we grasp this concept of what it is that we are called to do. And once we grasp it, because we say we know it, and we like to boast and brag that we know the lessons of our holy and divine prophet. But we have to make knowledge born, as they would say in certain teachings. We have to make it into wisdom and understanding. You know, how is it that it can be applicable? And knowing that life is important, that the preservation of human life is important, it puts you in the mind state of, okay, what is it that I have to do to continue this preservation of human life? It's my job to leave something behind. If I don't have any children, to leave something behind to my close family members, to leave something to my nieces and my nephews, to build a legacy, to establish a legacy. Every other nationality has it. Every other group of people has it. Every other person that knows that they are creation from the great God Allah, whatever they may call him. They may call him Brahman, they may call him Yahweh, they may call him Ra, etc., etc. They know what they were called to do down here on the plane of manifest. And so we have to continue to remind ourselves, what are we called here to do? So I ask you and I challenge you to live each and every life thinking that the decisions that you make, how is that going to affect the outcome of when I'm long gone, when I veil the form? Think about that mindset. When we wake up in the morning, we're almost on autopilot. You know, a Sheik brother told me in passing that it seems that our minds are so much on autopilot that we can talk on the phone while we're driving, and before we know it, we're at home. How many of us have done that before? Have witnessed that before? We're on autopilot. But how much do you trust your conscious, your subconscious, especially in traffic? And then we do one better, and we have the Bluetooth and we're talking and so on and so forth. There's certain scientific studies that say we're not supposed to multitask. It says it overloads the brain, if you will. you know, for us to be focused towards one thing or something that is similar, you know. But we have to have a greater appreciation for the life of our own as well as the life of others. And knowing that and understand that and reminding ourselves of that enables us to make better decisions, to begin to develop and establish ourselves as a solid nation state, as a solid nation within a nation, as a solid group of people that is a spirit and a part of Allah. Islam, I'm going to draw from a couple of chapters this evening. The first chapter is first of the chapter is 4. Chapter 4, the death and burial of Elizabeth, Matheno's lessons, the ministry of death. Read this book every day. I just need to keep it just straightforward as possible. Read this pamphlet every day. Read your divine constitutions every day. Read your one-on-ones every day. It's important. In these lessons, you'll learn to love instead of hate. In these lessons, you can set your house in order. Within these lessons, you can teach your children so that they may learn to love instead of hate. Islam family? Islam. Every time that you read a chapter from this pamphlet, from the Moorish Holy Quran, something else will surface. Something will unveil, will unfold. This afternoon, as I was reading a chapter in part, I came across something, and immediately when I came across it, I called my Sheik brother. I tried to call one brother, I couldn't get him. And when I couldn't get him, I called the other one. I texted him, I sent it through Facebook Messenger, and I think he saw it so many times, he was like, well, let me see what this brother's talking about. And we talked, and we built we had a build for about 2 hours. Going on 2 hours. And it felt good. It felt good for me because, you know, the concepts are limitless. But when you leave, you know, when we talk about we want to build, I mean, it's words behind that. It's a meaning behind that. So if we coming together and we exchanging philosophical concepts or lofty concepts, and you're leaving with nothing, then you haven't built. You should leave with it should be an exchange. So if he left with something, then he's added on, and you've added on to him, and vice versa. That's a build. But if y'all are just exchanging philosophies and y'all can't come to a conclusion, then what have y'all built? Again, y'all, it's not productive. Vanity. You know what I'm saying? So, what I'm going to talk about today, in part, with chapter 4, again, is this idea of death and resurrection. And what are we doing in the midst of the dead? What are we doing in the cares of the world? How are we operating? How are we navigating? Islam? It reads, starting on verse 1. When John was 12 years old, his mother died, and neighbors laid her body in a tomb among her kindred in the Hebron burying ground and near to Zechariah's tomb. And John was deeply grieved. He wept, and Matheno said, "It is not well to weep because of death. Death is no enemy to man. It is a friend who, when the work of life is done, just cuts the cord that binds the human boat to earth, that it may sail on smoother seas. Islam?
Islam.
No language can describe a mother's worth, and yours was tried and true. But she was not called hence until her tasks were done. Islam? It also says further, well, actually right before this chapter, Elihu said to Mary and Elizabeth, no man lives unto himself. He is bound by cords to every living thing. Islam? And it's saying in death, that this is the time where the cord gets cut to sail on to smoother seas, going to that next level, to the plane of spirit, or to the plane of soul, pardon self. But they're not to leave this plane of manifest until their work is done. So as much as we like to believe that that person's work is not done when they have veiled the form, it is finished. And we have to come to that conclusion, not to be devoid of emotion and to the feeling. Because as Matheno said to John, he said, no language can describe a mother's worth, and yours is tried and true. But remember, she has finished her job on the plane of manifest. And now he goes on by saying, now it is time for you to fulfill your destiny. Islam? The cause of death are always for the best. We on verse 5. The cause of death are always for the best. For we are solving problems there as well as here. And one is sure to find himself where he can solve his problems best. Islam? But it is selfishness that makes one wish to call again to earth departed souls. Then let your mother rest in peace. Just let her noble life be strength and inspiration unto you. A crisis in your life has come, and you must have a clear conception of the work that you are called to do. And we're going to skip down to verse 10. Your mission here is that of the harbinger. For you will go before the Messiah's face to pave his way, to make the people ready to receive their king. This readiness is purity of heart. None but the pure in heart can recognize the king. To teach men to be pure in heart, you must yourself be pure at heart, word and deed. Shalom, family?
Islam.
In the midst of death, do you have a clear conception on what you are called to do? Islam, family?
Islam.
Because we out here facing the dead. How many of us watch the show Walking Dead? I watched like seasons 1 through 4. And that was it. I couldn't watch anymore. But it says in the Moorish Holy Quran that death is not an enemy, he's a friend. So right then and there, you have to think about your approach. An elder once told me, never look to remove a thing unless you can replace it. So when we go out to our people and teach them that they are not Negro, colorful black people, Ethiopian, etc., what are we putting in place of that? Are we reviving the dead? And now the question is, how are you to revive the dead? How are you to get a person, how are you to take a person that has been reduced to an object, as I spoke of before, that doesn't have life? Because remember, we have a degree on the pinnacle of wisdom. And the pinnacle of wisdom is the preservation of life. And we also know in the degree of Jesus, not only is he a redeemer, but he also represents the resurrection. So we also have those degrees. We have the degrees of resurrection. If you believe me, say Islam.
Islam.
So as we walk in the midst of the dead, once again I ask you, do you have a clear conception of what you are called to do? Islam? And that's a clear conception. I don't mean just regurgitated by way of Acts 6. I don't mean regurgitating it by way of your Quran questions. It has to, you have to feel that in your spirit. You have to, again, spend every waking moment contributing to the uplifting of fallen humanity. Let's think about that for just a moment. What have we done today to contribute to the uplifting of fallen humanity? I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. I'm not going to tell people to raise their hand. If you have done something, then praise Allah. If you have done nothing, glory be to Allah, that you have taken heed to what I have said this evening and know that it is your charge as a Moorish American, as a sympathizer of this Moorish Divine and National Movement, because you support this movement. Even if you do not consider yourself to be a Moorish American and you are advocate of producing or perpetuating the success and the prosperity of Asiatics living in America, then that's part of your charge too. Because if nobody can reach a Moorish American with a fez or a turban and they have to talk to you, what are you going to say on behalf of the Moorish American? What are you going to say on behalf of this Moorish Divine and National Movement? Oh, they cool people. You know, they give out food every Sunday, or every so often. You know, and I take a bag of potato chips or two. You know, they have good lectures. I got their Quran questions. I have their Moorish Holy Quran. But you are part of that. So you have to represent. You have to represent on behalf of what you are advocating. Islam? In the midst of the dead, do you have a clear conception on what you are called here to do? Islam, family? It says in the back of our Quran questions that we are missionaries, right? All right. It says in verse 10 of chapter 4 that is your mission is that of harbinger. You will go before the Messiah's face to pave the way and make the people ready to receive their king. So again, as we interpret and unfold these concepts and ideas, we're missionaries of our prophet Noble Drew Ali. So we have to go before the people and prepare them to receive our prophet. Prepare them for the resurrection. That is our charge, is it not? This is what we are called here to do. If we don't do anything else, we got to prepare the ground so the seed can be planted deeply, so it can grow and it can bloom. Right? If we're not doing that, and we're digging in a scantily way, or in a scanty way, we got much more work to do, family. We got to roll our sleeves up. Teach men to be pure at heart, but you yourself must be pure at heart, word and deed. It's not an overnight thing. I get it. The prophet said, man is truth and falsehood strangely mixed. I get it. But you got control. See, we say we was masterminds, right? Masterminds that are able to trace themselves back. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. But if we call ourselves, if we continue to say that we're Moorish American Muslims, and that we're missionaries of this Moorish Divine and National Movement, there's a certain way we have to walk, a certain way we got to talk, a certain way we have to present ourselves. Because when they look at you, they're looking at the prophet. When they look at you, they're looking at Allah. So you got to come correct. If you're coming anything to less than, then you got to go back to the drawing board, family. Islam? Islam. We'll go to chapter 11. And now more surely Qurans. When you get there, say Islam. Chapter 11, Jesus and Barada, together they read the sacred books. Islam, you got a minute? Okay. And I'm going to bounce around. So, my message is very simple this evening. You know, the first one I drove home. What was my message? What was my first message? We're going to have some participation. What was my message?
Matheno's lesson.
So what? Matheno's lessons? Okay. What was my theme in the lesson?
No, the pinnacle wisdom. In
the midst of the dead.
Yeah, know what our mission is in the midst of death.
In the midst of death. Thank you. In the midst of death. The cares of the world. The cares of the world is harsh, isn't it? Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard. But you know, again, you know, when we look at our scriptures and we look at our lessons, you know, signs and symbols for the conscious mind. You know, he's reviving. When we look at our Quran questions, you see that the prophet is holding humanity. So he's bringing her to the shores of salvation, and he's reviving her. And when you're on the shores of salvation, he's not just going to leave her there. He's not just going to drop her on the shores of salvation and just be out. Exactly. He's not going to do that. You know, our prophet is a noble prophet, and he's a master, and he's left his path clearly cut. So he's going to give you some lessons, because you're not going to stay on salvation. And family, it's more than time. It's about time that we begin the process of leaving these shores of salvation and going into the depths, into the cares of the world, and bringing our people back to the shores of salvation. Islam? Again, you gotta have a clear concept we are called here to do. Chapter 11. I'm going to bounce around. We're going to be on verse 4. And if those of you who are not familiar with verse 4, with chapter 11 rather, this is a chapter where Jesus and Bharata, they read the Avestas, the Vedas, and the wisdom of Gautama, or the wisdom of Buddha. Bharata Arebo is a Buddhist priest. And him, or Jesus and him, they're building. That's what they're doing. They're building on, as you would say, the possibilities of man. And during the build, Bharata, I don't know why I want to say Barabbas, pardon himself. Bharata says to Jesus that man is the marvel of the universe. He is part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and then he was bit of formless substance in the molds of time, and then a protoplast. By universal law, all things tend upward to the state of perfectedness. The protoplast evolved, becoming a worm, then reptile, bird, and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. That sound familiar?
Yes.
Now man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience. And mind is often manifest in fleshy form, and in the form best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm, or bird, or beast, or man. The time will come when everything of life will be evolved and unto the state of perfect man. And after man is man in perfectedness, he will evolve to higher forms of life. It's a powerful demonstration by Brother Bharata, or Rabo, ain't it? Oh, yeah. Sound good, don't it? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Sounds good.
Jesus said, we got the degree of Jesus, don't we?
It's all right.
Okay. Jesus says, Barata Arabo, who taught you this? That mind, which is the man, may manifest in flesh of beast or bird or creeping thing. Barata said, from the times which man remembers not, our priests have told us, and so we know. And Jesus said, enlighten, Arabo. Are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows naught? Not. Not. Knows naught. Man knows naught by being told. Man knows nothing by being told. Islam family?
Islam.
Do you remember, Arabo, when you were ape or bird or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, you do not know. You simply guess. Regard not then what any man has said. Let us forget the flesh and go with the mind into the land of fleshless things. Mind never forgets. And backward through the ages, mastermind trace themselves, and thus they know. Islam family?
Islam.
We have saving power, family. And that saving power comes from our forefathers. Right? The second part of the message is that you have to be what you know. No one can tell you who you are. Let me say that again. No one can tell you who you are. No one can tell you that you're the color of that chair. No one can tell you that you're that chair. When you ask your family members, or when you ask your friends and family, you know, what are you? They say, I'm black. And then you ask them the question, well, how do you know you're black? Because I know I'm black. That's what my mama said. That's what my mama's mama said.
Look at it.
Look at me. I'm black. But we see right there in this demonstration by our brother Arabo that if you have no other proof than what you have been told, you do not know, you simply guess. And that, my friend, is folly at its greatest heights. And why is that? Let me see if I do a good job of reeling this back together. Because if you only guess, then you do not have a clear conception on what you are called to do. We have 3 steps. What are those 3 steps? Belief, faith, and fruition. Islam. And we have belief. The definition of belief is what man thinks perhaps is true. And faith is what man knows is true. Knows that Allah and man is one. Going into fruition. Now, belief is great. Perhaps this thing called the Moorish Divine and National Movement works. But you know it. You know it in your heart. You know how you know it? Because you see it. You can see it everywhere. You may not be aware of it, but you see it everywhere. You see it on TV. You see it in Doraville. You see it in North Druid Hills. You see it on the History Channel. You see it on YouTube. You see it on the Life Channel. You see it in the movies. You saw it in Black Panther, didn't you? Did you see it? Did you recognize it? You saw it, and it felt good to you. I know it did. Because it's in your psyche. It's in your DNA. Your DNA, of course, is not just your physical attributes. It's your spiritual, it's your mental attributes as well. It carries everything. It even carries addiction. Do we know that? It carries the very fabric of your structure. Everything that makes your bloodline who you are is within that DNA. So it's within you. It's deep within you. It has to be unlocked. It has to be resurrected. There's that word again. Right? So if there is any guesswork, or if we have to guess what we are called to do, then we don't know. And we have to make an effort to truly understand this Moorish Divine and National Movement. If I say, why are you a Moorish American? And you just say, because we're descendants of Moroccans born in America. That's great. But are you just regurgitating, or do you know that? Because what if somebody comes and says, well, how are you Moroccan? How is that possible? I went to 23andMe and AfricanAncestry.com, and they said that I'm Native American. Matter of fact, I believe that there was no slave ships. They didn't exist. I can't find them. They somewhere with Noah's Ark. The slave ships are with Noah's Ark. And I can't find both of them. So what you gonna say? You gonna just simply guess and just say that's what the book say? I know that may be a little extreme, but conviction is needed. Conviction and having the ability to explain on the level of the person that you're speaking to what you mean by being descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Being able to explain the importance of not being a Negro, Black, or colored. Because again, what you're doing, you're taking away their identity. We're already in an identity crisis, but you're taking a thing that they're clinging on to. Matter of fact, they added this word to it. So not only is it black, black power. So I know I'm demonstrating semantics, but you're taking away black power. What can you replace with black power? Now I know it's a rhetorical question, but these are things that we have to think about. Again, and I say all this because as I mentioned before, in this Moorish Divine and National Movement, we have to be able to provide for our people. And providing for our people, teaching is just a part of it. It says in our Divine Constitution and bylaws that we must be a part and parcel of all uplifting acts. So not only do we have to teach them, but we have to be involved in uplifting acts to show them that process. Speaking with my Sheik brother lieutenant, we talk about being able to set an example. So if you're telling me that I need to quit my job and provide for my family, how am I to do that? We need an example. We need to be in a position that sooner than later, that if we have people come in to this organization, that we can tell them that they can leave their job. You got a job here, family. Matter of fact, not only am I going to give you a job, but I'm going to help you to start your own job. How does that sound? Not only am I going to move you out of the projects, I'm going to put you in a living environment where you and your children can grow. And I'm going to teach you how and that land belongs to you. You know what I'm saying? So you have to replace it with something greater. You have to give them value. That's important. That's important that we instill value within this community. Because when we go out into the cares of the world, me and one of the vanguards that went out and went around to the neighborhoods, the other day, we saw desolence. We saw despair. Our people are beaten down. They got the weight on their shoulders. And we have to be in a position to help them to take some of that weight off. To demonstrate that hand press, which is a symbol of unity. But it's also a symbol of raising them up. Islam? One final thing, and I'm going to yield the floor. Y'all all right?
Islam.
We're going to be on chapter 13 of our Moorish Holy Quran. Chapter 13, verse 10. And in this chapter, the title of this chapter is Life and Works of Jesus in Egypt amongst the Gentiles. And during this part that I'll be reading, he comes into the sacred brotherhood. But by this time, Jesus is well learnt into the 12 steps, so on and so forth. But he's being reintroduced to this brotherhood. And it reads in verse 10, the council of the brotherhood convened, and Jesus stood before the Hierophant. He answered all the questions that were asked with clearness and power. And the Hierophant exclaimed, Rabboni of the rabbinate, why come you here? Your wisdom is the wisdom of the gods. Why seek for wisdom in the halls of men? And Jesus said, in every way of earth life I would walk. In every hall of learning I would sit. The heights that any man has gained, these I would gain. What any man has suffered, I would meet, that I may know the griefs, the disappointments, and the sore temptations of my brother man, that I may know just how to succor those in need. Salam, family. I pray you, brothers, let me into your dismal crypts, and I will pass the hardest of your tests. The master said, take the vow of the sacred brotherhood. And Jesus took the vow of the sacred brotherhood. You took a vow too. You remember that vow? I am a citizen of the US of A. Noble Drew Ali, the prophet. That sound familiar? That vow sound familiar? Islam, family. Again, the master spoke and he said, the greatest heights are gained by those who reach the greatest depths, and you shall reach the greatest depths. In other words, you will suffer. You will suffer tried and true. But it says in the great Quran of Mecca, it says, you cannot call yourself of the faithful, of the mu'minun, and not be tested. And, again, we like to call ourselves masterminds. The universe is going to test you. You're going to say, okay, mastermind, take this. How you going to handle that? Okay, you took that well, now take care of this. And depending on how you handle those situations, will be depending on you if you're going to face that situation again. Why? Because we measure time by what? Cycle ages. So don't worry, if you ain't get it that time, you'll get it again. Islam? The guide then led the way, and in the fountain Jesus bathed. And when he had been clothed in the proper garb, he stood again before the Hierophant. Islam family, you've been bathed, and you have been clothed in the proper garb. You remember that process? You remember that process when you had proclaimed and accepted your nationality? You were washed. You came to the fountain, and you were bathed and you were clothed. You were washed as a symbolism of purity, and you were stood fully clothed. Fully clothed. It's important that we not only go out or study this, but we practice what we preach. Be what you know. We got to go out there to the family and bring them in. We got to go out there to the cares of the world. We got to go out there to the dunya. We got to go out there to the dismal crypts. Wherever the dead may be, we got to walk amongst them. But we also have to have a clear conception on what we are called to do. Islam family?
So,
Any questions?